Welcome to Entanglement Radio, transcendent talk for the conscious mind. Join us for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science, new thought, and conscious healing. Explore the potential and infinite possibilities of what it means to be human with some of the best guests in radio. At Entanglement Radio, it is all connected. Now, here is your host, Angela Levesque, on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. I have a very exciting program for you today. We have Katherine Allen on the program, and we are talking about creating with the power of place, which I actually took that wording from her website because I just thought it was so interesting. And we're going to be exploring how our spaces can help us unlock our potential. And you know that I'm all about potential on this show. And I've also recently moved into a new house. So this has been swirling around in my consciousness quite a bit lately. So I'm excited to get to that conversation. Coming up next week, we have Jane Del Puro, and we are going to be talking about theta healing. I actually have not explored theta healing that much before. And we're going to be talking about the power of our beliefs and how we can shift our subconscious through things like prayer and meditation, which is the basis of theta healing. So we will be doing that next week with Jane Del Puro. If you need to get a hold of me at any time during the week, you can email me at angela@hestiahealth.com. You can find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health. And yes, I have some kind of big news. I'll give the majority of it next week, but Entanglement Radio is actually going to be moving from the OMTimes Radio Network. I've so enjoyed my time, and I'm incredibly grateful. It's actually going to become just a podcast. And so there'll be more information about that next week. But if you still want to stay in touch and be able to hear this show, do find me. You can go to my Facebook page at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio, and you can keep apprised to this big movement in my life. So there's lots of things that moving and shaking here. And, sometimes you just got to look and say, what's next? So let's get to the show today, though. Katherine Allen is an author, speaker, interior designer, and life coach. She is the founder of harmoniouslivingnow.com, where she helps clients integrate the power of place and with the power of mindset to create harmonious and thriving environments. She is the author of the award-winning book, Emily's Room, Creating Spaces That Unlock Your Potential. Katherine Allen holds a BA in Art, Community Health, and Sociology, a professor of interior design degree, and is certified in Feng Shui. Katherine is equally trained in the intuitive arts through an apprenticeship with Shaman Lynn Andrews. She's got yoga certification and many other holistic practices. So with that, I feel very honored and blessed to welcome Katherine Allen to the program. Hello, Katherine.
Hello, and thank you. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
I'm very excited. Are you a fellow Boisean? Is that correct?
Am I what?
Are you a fellow Boisean?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I keep telling people. I mean, I have a lot of people from Boise on my program, and just, I don't know, I love this place. So I'm super happy to have you on.
It's the best kept secret.
It is. I know I should stop telling people about it.
Yeah.
Well, I have, as I said in my intro, I have recently moved into a new construction and a new build. And my natural tendency, I wanted to look at all the older houses with the unique, little weird architectural structures on the interior and built-ins and all of that. And my husband's engineering brain could not wrap around, getting an older house. He's like, you don't know what you're getting into, and it's got old wiring and all of that. So we ended up getting a new build. And so design has really been floating around in my consciousness lately. Particularly, one of the things that I noticed is moving in, it had the energy in this new build was so flat because it hadn't had previous tenants. It was brand new. It smelled new. There was a lot of, off gassing or whatever that's called from all of the new materials. And so I had to keep the windows open. But the energy was flat. And so as an interior designer, is that something that when you go in, do you feel into the energy of the space?
I definitely do. And I think most of us do on some level. Like you just identified, it felt flat. And people tell me all the time they go into a space and instantly they love it or instantly they don't like it. Your first impression is so important because it's very valuable in having your house talk to you and having that conversation with it. And it is a conversation. Your environment is not outside of you. It is you. And you picked that house for a specific reason, even if you don't know what it is. And so to engage in that conversation, it's sort of like we've lost touch with nature and our own nature. And your house is also built, it's not just brick and stone, and it's alive. And it's on this beautiful earth plane, that we are living on. And our Mother Earth is alive.
I like what you're saying there, because, right now I'm staring out my window of my office and I'm looking at the houses across the street. And yes, there's stone and there's brick and there's wood, all of these things. Of course, there's plastic, which did not come from the earth. But, all of those things are, were given to us from this beautiful earth. And now we've incorporated it. And I don't think I quite appreciated how those elements bring that, that energy into our environment.
Well, I think you're really highlighting an important part that we forget, that we have to be connected to our space. And you right off the bat were not necessarily connected to what it is that you felt drawn to and wanting. And so you wanted the older house with that character, and then you'd move into a new place. So you have to have that, forge that relationship with something that feels unfamiliar, that maybe you don't resonate with because it's not part of your ideal place of beauty. And as long as you're disconnected on any level for any reason, then you're not really engaging in an opportunity to heighten your energy and vibration enough to let your potential come out. So sometimes it just takes that appointment, like I go into people's homes and just sit and talk just like I am with you. What's going on? How do you feel about this house? Let's look around and start looking at it in a deeper conversation. And some people think that's sort of weird, but I don't think it's weird at all because I've seen it for 20 years that people, their homes are their environment in which they either thrive or just survive. And that Feng Shui always taught us that, your environment is the mirror of who you are. So it has something there. And so that's what I would tell you in your consultation is, Angela, there's some reason. There's some purpose. Let's get the gift here. Is there any way that you can see, what is it about this home that you absolutely can love? Let's start there because you want to raise that energy. Perhaps it's a clean slate, or, what is it about that home that you can enjoy?
Yes. And I've got to say, so I've been here about 8 months now, and there's things like obviously the layout we enjoyed. That's why we picked it. But I took a lot of time and I went and I actually saged the house. And then I have done, some little rituals or prayers or meditations, whatever you want to call it, in different rooms. Especially I've taken that time to do that in my office because I do a lot of healing work in there. But yes, I feel like now we've kind of we broke it in a little bit, and we've put an imprint of ourselves in this space. And so I enjoy it much more now than I did when I first moved in. And I thought, oh, wow, this just feels weird. It's like a void. But I want to ask you about, and I took this language from your bio, the power of place. What does that mean to you?
Well, I always quote Scott Dinsmore, who was the founder of Live Your Legend, that said environment is everything. Because at the beginning of our lives, we are inside the womb. We have environment. That's our ecosystem. We're marinating in environment of our parents' thoughts and our DNA. And then when we get out, we're marinating pre-verbally with our environment. So environment becomes everything. And then all the way through our lives, we're thinking, breathing, feeling, and sheltering ourselves and extending out into the community, which is also our environment. So environment is everything. That's why there's power there. If you learn just that, you can begin to leverage it. Even realtors know that in terms of, what's the best place to be in. Location, location, location. Put yourself in the best environment and you're going to thrive. So that's the power, and to know that, and to know that space that you have, or anybody else's space, that you can leverage that power because it affects us. Brene Brown, Queen of Vulnerability, says that our genetics may load the gun, but it's our environment that pulls the trigger.
I love Brene Brown.
Important. I do too, and I feel like that is so important to just get that first step, that my environment counts, and that it is my reflection of what I'm thinking and feeling and needing and wanting.
Well, we are going to be up here on a break in a little bit. We've talked about a lot about being connected with the environment, and I want to break it down into some of the specifics and talk specifically about your lights on system and the placement of some of the things in the room, and also this idea of balancing, because we talked a lot here before the break about, like melding with the environment and paying attention. And I know that you're trained in Feng Shui, and how do you balance, what the client is drawn to with these principles of Feng Shui, which I think is really interesting, because I think there's many different levels upon which you can engage with your environment. And some of those might be towards some of, those more ancient systems or traditions like Feng Shui. And some of it might just be, I love in your book, Emily's Room, how when she gets excited about things and her hair stands on edge. And I just thought that was so cool that it's just like, ooh, look it. I'm connected to this. So I want to talk about a little bit between the balance of what the client's feeling and then some of these time and tested techniques and philosophies on how we develop and set up our room. So we'll explore that more here with Katherine Allen when we return on Entanglement Radio.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio. Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
joining us now, I have my guest today is Katherine Allen, and she's the author of Emily's Room, Creating Spaces to Unlock Your Potential. Did I say that correct? That's Unlock Your Potential. So before the break, I said I wanted to kind of talk about, in your book, you have this design toolkit, and you talk about the lights on system. What exactly is that?
The lights on process or something is something what I distilled from all of that information from Feng Shui, which is complicated and it takes years, maybe lifetimes to learn, as well as the leading research about environment, of which there's only a handful of people that are really fully engaged in finding out how the built community and your mindset, how they all work together for productivity, creativity, unlocking potential. So this little book came as a distillment of all of those ideas in the most simple, cutest way for anybody at any age that they can get it. That if you raise your vibration to what you love and you connect that into the environment, and it's not about how a room looks, it's about how it feels and how it affects you. And so Emily is wired strangely. She is wired to her heart, and her hair lifts up every time she's happy, so her parents automatically know that this is important for her to have in her room. This becomes your ideal place of beauty. This is your ecosystem, and everybody has one. And it's different for everybody. And so the Lights On Toolkit is that process that we do as interior designers and Feng Shui energy workers kind of combine and just gives you that step-by-step, start identifying the components of the outside environment and the inside mindset of what it is that you like and love, and then you put that together into the environment.
So are there more?
I have an example.
Oh, sure.
I have an example of that. There was a very well-known designer, and he was noted for putting a lot of foo-foo into the homes and really decorating in more Victorian style. But when I worked with him and I did the ideal place of beauty, which is a visualization I take my clients through, he found out that what environment really turned him on was just a tent by the woods, by a river. And he was so surprised because he thought he liked all this stuff and he liked all this fancy things and putting all these shapes together, but he said, I didn't realize that what I need in my whole soul and my heart and my body is simplicity and nature. And so sometimes we're mixed-matched, or mismatched with what we think we want and need. So you have to dive a little bit deeper into that, that style plan, that design style concept.
I like that. When I watch design shows like HGTV, I find that they put so much stuff in the room that it's so cluttered. And I don't know, how do you feel about all those little tchotchkes and stuff that they put in there? And I appreciate the color element, but I just find that it's too much. Or is that just my personal style?
It really is just your personal style, because there are people who like a lot of it and could use it, but there are more people up to the point where the energy becomes stagnant, right? When it becomes stuck, then even those people who enjoy a lot of things will have some difficulty, and that will come up in different ways, like not being able to lose weight, not getting your rest properly, not feeling vitally alive in some way. When people say, I'm fine, that's not good enough. You have to say, I'm great. That means that your environment has supported you to elevate you up, to raise your consciousness, to have that spark of life come out. So you have to find, for each person, and in Feng Shui, this is a great segue to Feng Shui because it talks about inner system, based on the year you were born and many other things, you have a propensity towards a certain type of style and color and shape and line. And that's another thing I help people identify, and then we do a collage from there. And we see kind of where you're hanging out. Are you more purist, like the element of metal? You like structure and clean lines and white cabinets and walls? Or are you more earthy, that you like stability and you like the more softer English country and feminine softness. So you have to find that balance, but you can use the system, and then you can use some more mindset ways, such as collage and the 7 steps in the book. Emily's Room is a perfect example of how that good design meets old ancient wisdom, and they come together.
Because that was going to be my next question. Because what if I'm, because I really like modern. Our new build is very modern, lots of chrome and metal mixed with very clean lines. And I really like color too. So painted walls, and that was going to be my question that I was introducing before the break. Is that what if somebody says yes? Like, for example, I know in Feng Shui there's very specific ways you should put your bed. Now, what if somebody's like, yes, this is awesome. I feel connected to it. And it's with your feet directly in front of the door, which from my understanding is a no-no. Feel free to correct me. So what is more important, that Feng Shui or what that person is really connected to?
Well, that first rule is Feng Shui should ignite your own intuition, because you can't do 250 different changes and understand what you did that made a difference. So you have to use your intuition as your guide, which really gets to the point of, do we have intuition? Do we trust it? That's why that mindset's so important. It's good to have somebody just coach you and say, yes, let's go with that. Let's go with your intuition. Now, understanding the rules, just like in any art form, including Feng Shui, it's nice to know the rules so that when you break them, you know why and what you're breaking. But it's your life. You get to do what you want.
Well, I know in our new house, we had quite a few different options for our bed position upstairs. And where would have been like the place, where they eat across from there, they put all the TV stuff. And so the place that they said, this is where most people are going to put their bed. My husband and I, we had our bed there and for a couple of weeks, and we're like, geez, man, we're just not sleeping very well. And so I thought, how about we try a different wall? So we moved it to a different wall. And, we left it there for a couple of weeks, and we were both like, no, that just doesn't feel right. So we put it at probably the most illogical wall from like the form of the room. And that's where it stayed, because we found we slept better. And it was actually looking into then, we used our intuition first. And then I looked into some Feng Shui, and I don't know very much about it, but I asked, some friends and stuff. And so according to that principle, that's the best place to put the bed. And we've had way better sleep since that happened. So there's something to that for sure.
And there often is. And I love how you explored it. You became flexible. It wasn't a rule, so it didn't become some stagnant kind of doctrine. You experimented with it. You found that for yourself to be true. That's the best way to come to that knowledge.
And are there rooms that are more important than others?
I always consider the bedroom very important, along with your living room, the kitchen.
Yeah.
There might, if you work at home, your office is going to be very important.
Absolutely.
But the main thing is maybe the front door.
The entryway.
The entryway, because that's where the chi and the vitality comes in, and that's where you're connected from the outside of your community. So always looking at that area, making sure it's clear, it's not anything broken, and you're increased and energized it with the right decoration or the right colors. You might have pots on each side of it, or on the door. You might have your door colored, painted a certain color. You just wanted to, I think it was Oprah Winfrey that said, does your home stand up to greet you?
I love that.
So the entry was so important for that.
And are there some, common mistakes that you see? Is it even okay to look at it as mistakes? Are there some common missteps maybe that people make when they have their entryway? Because I know, looking at from a builder's perspective, right? They just build it and I don't think that they probably think that much about the energy of the house. And so, what are some of the things that you see that can affect the flow of that chi?
Some of the things that I always look at is it roomy enough for your body to feel like you're being birthed? It's sort of like the birth canal of the home. And you want to have a nice birth canal opening. So if it's dark and cramped, if a wall is right there in front of you within 3 or 4 feet, you don't really have enough birthing room to transition from whatever you've done outside of the community and how you're going to replenish and have a sanctuary in your house. So that's so important. And if you need to use mirrors to make it feel enlarged, or you need to open up a little wall or take out, some people make their closet and take out everything and not even use it as a closet, but make it maybe a little growing room for plants and their statues and things there. So you can always gain some space usually. I like to think if I was lying down in that entry, do I have enough room to come out? So, at least 5-6 feet forward without a wall hitting you. And then another one that is often done in Feng Shui is, are you going to see right out the window or out a door? That means the energy can fly out before it even distributes itself around the rest of the home. So you have less chi or energy helping you out. So that's a big no-no. That's what I usually call them, as no-nos, but you can always find a cure. Because there's no perfect, there's nothing perfect. There's not a perfect relationship, a person, a home, time, anything. Mm-hmm. So you have that flexibility to cure it, but the most important thing is to become aware of it. It's, my environment, is this environment going to allow me to bloom?
I love the idea that you take people through guided visualizations to help them get in touch with that, because like so many things in life, I think we just let convention or culture or society dictate what it is that looks good, what it is that works for us, the best way to move, the best way to eat. So I love that. So when we get back, I want to talk about color and texture when we return here with Katherine Allen.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book? Or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
All right, we are back, and you're listening to Entanglement Radio with Angela Levesque right here on the OMTimes Radio Network. We're speaking with Katherine Allen today, author of Emily's Room, Creating Spaces That Unlock Your Potential. She is a lifestyle coach, interior designer, speaker, and we are talking about creating spaces that activate or raise our vibration. And so let's talk for a moment about color. I love color. My first house in Boise, I had a chocolate brown room, I had a forest green room, I had a midnight blue room, my kitchen was red. And it's funny because it's now a rental, and people, when we've rented it out several times, and people will just send me emails saying, "Oh my gosh, I love the color in your house." And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of people who don't contact me because it's too much color in my house. But I just always love that. So what are your thoughts on color, and how do people figure out, accents and main colors and all of those things?
Well, I was reminded, you know how realtors often ask you to do everything blank, a blank slate color.
Yes.
And yet, every time I sold a house, I had a lot of color, and it was that reason why that person, and you only need one to sell a house, it was they love that color. So it's not necessarily, a rule that works all the way across the board. So the people love the colors that I chose, and there are a lot of people who are color people that like warm or intense colors. And so this is a personality of getting to know yourself. This is also within the context of the Feng Shui system based on the year you were born, that you can find certain colors that you usually will gravitate towards, whether they're warm or cool, whether they're bright or more dulled out. So this is an interesting individualized color, because even color is perceived differently from person to person. But generally, the warm colors will make you feel more active, so they're good for the more living rooms and kitchens and rooms in your office maybe. And then the cooler colors, which are the blues and the purples and the greens, are better for those rooms like bedrooms and bathrooms that you go inward. Now that's just a generalization, but it makes some sense.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the realtors and this idea of grayish, that everything should be this. I recently, we had somebody stage our house a while ago, and because of all my color, we weren't going to repaint everything. And, but I had so many people just say, wow, they were attracted to that. And I think that it's kind of silly to think that people want to go into spaces and have them so neutral, because we are drawn to that. Color's vibration. And, I guess beige and grayish are vibration too, but they're not as, I don't know. I think that it's more stirring within you to see some of those colors. And maybe they don't need to be espresso brown or midnight blue, but I think that like you said, there's many people who like that. And I think even they know that they can change the color. But I think that there's a market out there for people who stage homes and such that go out and are bold in their what they do.
Hey, I love that idea, because there is something about, there's a researcher, Judith Hierwagen, that talks about that our environments are almost blah. They teach us to be in the gray scale. They don't enliven us to live beyond surviving into thriving. I think that's the new frontier that we're on, the new horizon, is creating whole life environments that awaken us to the idea of what is it that makes us thrive. Not survive and get by and take care of our well-being needs, just our basic needs. And in her research, she finds that there's all kinds of stress-related illnesses and psychological maladjustments just from living in a gray world. And I don't mean a color gray, but I mean a lower vibration, all the same. You know, there was this beautiful book when I read as a child, Mr. Klein's Purple House. He decided he had to be different, so he painted his house purple. And then he woke up and everybody's house was purple. And then he got so upset. He was like, oh, you can't just do purple. That's my color. And after that, people decided what color works for them. And so when he woke up the next day or several days later, there was pink and purple and yellow. And it really illustrated that people are like nature and like flowers. And each of them have a different color that they resonate for, and at different times. You may really like a certain color because you're drawn to that vibration of that color. One woman said she lost her job and was out of the work environment for probably 15 years, raising her children, and all of a sudden she knew she needed to get back. And she had a red rug on the floor, just a small one, and something just said, pick that red rug up and put it on your wall. And she did, and she said that red vibrated at such an intensity that it motivated her to get out the door and that everything was possible.
I love that. It's almost, and going, to the story about the purple house, it's almost like people are waiting for permission to say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay for you to be different and embrace your uniqueness, even if you want a purple house or, a red kitchen or whatever it is. I think that, sometimes it's just like, well, is that okay? Is that okay? And I say, yes, go for it. Be bold.
Yeah, I love that idea. And that may be part of that movement in us to reach for our potential, to nudge us forward in different ways, to be flexible with what status quo. That's where we're at, is in that leading edge to move from surviving to thriving. And that's not defined yet. And that may very well be in the environment that we need to come out and be braver about what we like and what we love.
Because really, that's where you get excited about life, is when, it's not just this gray world. When you feel like, wow, I'm attracted to this, whether it's a job or a person or a paint color, and then you take action and you connect with it. And that's, the first step to thriving, like you said, and getting passionate. I want to talk a little bit more about the color thing. So say somebody really likes purple, because I actually love purple. I had a purple living room once and it was fantastic. And so how do people, so I like this main color for this room. How do they find or pick out their accents that go with that?
That's depending on the personality a lot too, because when I do a collage with people, I love collage, what I love, and I do it where you don't look at it for 5 years and collect little pieces of paper. You do it in 15 minutes where you bypass your logic and you pick out everything you love. It could be food, it could be vases, it could be nature. And I get to see from that whether you are attracted more to the bright and the light colors, or you're more attracted to the chroma that is more brighter. So it's a chroma. Think of your personality. Are you somebody who's more introverted or extroverted? The extroverted people usually like the more bright, dramatic colors. And then the introverted usually like the more sedate ones. But that's not necessarily always true, because a lot of us are right in the middle. And we have an inclination to go one way some days and other ways different days. So generally, if you have purple, you can pick, we just look at the harmony wheel, you can pick the opposite, which is a yellow, and that's going to contrast. That's going to be more dramatic. Or if you look at the color wheel, if you get purple next to something that's next to, like green, then it's more harmonious and more subdued. So there is some basic art components to that, but you have to reflect that and balance it against and weigh it up against your personality and how bright do you want to go and how subdued does your personality like to go. So from our conversation, you could probably tell that I am more outgoing and extroverted with all my color. I want to talk about texture, because it seems to me that wallpaper is back, and very textured wallpaper, because I have seen that in a lot of places. And
I never really thought of wallpaper as one of the ways to bring texture to a room, but it seems to be it's back trending again.
It's a big way, and your walls is such a big piece of space that whatever you put on there, consider the impact is going to be 10 times what you see on a little sample. So you have to be aware of that because it's such a big piece. And I like to more likely pick, if you're going to do wallpaper, maybe do some wallpaper in the back of a bookcase or the back of a closet area or a little nook. Just introduce it, but not necessarily have it all over. Because it's one of those things that can change out too. You can get tired of it. But texture, again, is one of those things that enliven us. Because that awakens the idea behind blooming and potential is waking up all the 5 senses. And touch is such an important one. So some people like smooth, and some people like a little bumpy. Some people like a lot of bumps on there, like from linen, which is a little bit textural. Generally, though, just as a kind of a general statement, if you don't have enough windows or light, if you don't have enough views, you can make it up by adding more of the other type of sensory, such as texture. So if you're like in a basement where you might not have any windows, you're being deficient in that sight, in the light, so add more texture and you'll enliven that space.
I never thought about that, but you're right. If, everything is, everything's frequency, but, that it's a very sensual experience. And I'm enjoying there's a lot of interesting blankets or, pillows and stuff that are just filled with softness. And I just love having that to connect with. And I can imagine being now in a basement that doesn't have a lot of light and just, enveloped in this beautiful chenille blanket. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and even, of course, you're going to try to get more light in there, but you're always going to be deficient on natural light if your basement doesn't have natural light. So those opportunities to enliven the space through texture is so important, and to contrast those, then you even get more intensity.
Well, when we return, I want to talk about what happens when you don't have a lot of control over your space, whether you're renting or maybe you're in an office cubicle. What are a few things that you can bring in to unlock your potential? We're talking with Katherine Allen here on Entanglement Radio. We'll be right back.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
segment where I like to bring it on home for my listeners. And this segment is brought to you by HestiaHealth.com. It's about getting the center of yourself in order before you can go and light the flame in your community. And you can find out more about my services and more about Hestia by going to my website at HestiaHealth.com, creating calm minds, open hearts, inspired lives. So, Katherine, I have had the experience before in my younger days when I was a renter, and we had very beige environments that we were not allowed to paint or, do very much to because it was a rental and we weren't allowed. So in those instances, what are some of the things that the little things that we can do to think about creating spaces that are helping to still raise our vibration even within the constraints of being a rental?
I think the best thing is to even work out those 7 steps in that book, Emily's Room, where it talks about how to find your unique energy and space and colors. So you get to know who you are first. And whether you use this 7 steps on my book, Emily's Room, that you can find on my website or at Amazon, or whether you use a different method like a collage, you've got to know and invite what you really want in. So the first thing is always the invitation. What do you want? What's your intention? What is it that you need? So that you can match that up with that color, that line, that shape. Then you can introduce it in various ways. There's a lot of portable components to it and elements in a home, such as statues and rugs and sofas, and there's a lot of things. So think of convertibility that you can take with you. That's huge. But mainly is that invite that intention, find what energy you're looking for, and then what shape and line and color matches up with that.
Yeah.
And then you start putting it in.
That makes a lot of sense. I know when I was younger, I was a bit on a budget, but also, too, I got to say, I didn't know myself very well either. So I think that getting to know yourself is a good first step for basically everything in your life.
And where you're at, because you're different each and every day. And so, by and large, you're going through a certain process, a certain learning that's unique to you for a certain amount of time. And so you want to find that environment to be supportive for that dream, that intention, and who you are. Then you can decide that you can find out, what energy matches up to that actual item.
So I had mentioned before the break, too, about things like some of we talk about the difference between surviving and thriving. And when you look at some of the ways that companies or hospitals, which are supposed to be healing environments, and I think you're seeing it a little bit more. I think you're starting to, like you said, there's a movement coming. It's a little bit slow, but there's a movement coming to think about the spaces and how they set up for something like an office. But I know, lots of people are in cubicles or in, like I said, even in hospitals, even though I see that it's coming, it's definitely coming. Are there like a top, like 1 or 2 things that you could think of to bring into your space? Like even if you're in a cubicle and you stare at other people's cubicles all day, is there anything just little, that a trinket or something that you can bring into the space that just helps you raise that vibration?
You could always bring a plant or something about nature, a little picture of nature. Especially if you don't have a view of a window where you can see out. We really need that as an opportunity to engage in the natural environment in order for our minds to open. So a little picture or a bigger picture of something with nature, a plant, if you can bring it in, and it could be a silk plant too, by the computer, so that your eyes can shift from that flat screen to 3D. So it really does help with that, around eye strain as well, and connect you to nature. My kind of favorite thing is just something that's inconspicuous, like I might bring a little cozy rug to put underneath my feet. Nobody sees it, but it makes a huge, big difference for you. So think of something that would really make a big difference. And on television, I saw somebody being interviewed, and she actually brought growing plants and and herbs for her lunch. And many companies are allowing you to bring in things. And she had a whole desk, a drawer with her snacks in it, all organized. So the idea is, think of treating yourself really well and what makes you come alive and what is it that you need, and then also what excites you. So the plant, a little rug that might be, I always like something really like a sheepskin, because I love that texture. It could be a shawl that you put, or a scarf that you put with a certain color that you put by your computer.
I think those
could be a crystal.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah. And the big thing is, or maybe it's colored pencils, like maybe your pencils and your pens for or your file folders, they can be colorful.
Those are some very outside of the box ideas. Speaking of cubicles, I love that. I want to ask too, because you had mentioned before about, figuring out who you are and then creating that. How willing should we be to shift our environments to go, like, maybe not on a weekly or monthly basis, but how much in the flow as far as changing things? How important do you think that is to be able to, to me, I'm thinking about Buddhism and everything's impermanent, even our purpose, and that everything is kind of in this state of flux. And do you suggest that people continually change their environments to suit where they're at?
I do, because we wear different clothes every day, and we have different routines every day. What I have worked with my clients for years is the seasonal changes. To find our own rhythm, there's a different rhythm and different energy of each season, and there's a different shape that goes with that season that helps us, like spring is happening. And in my new newsletter, I'll be talking about that energy of spring and how to bring that into your environment. And we think of naturally like spring cleaning, but also think of tall vases that are more vertical, because it's that downward and upward energy that you want. Or maybe so every season I actually do go through kind of a cleaning, decluttering, letting go of things, and then I do a little bit of redecorating, just enough to make some tweaks so that I don't become dull in my space, that my space feels enlivened with that new energy. What a great opportunity to use space to leverage your intention and to align to the natural season of each, season of the year, to have Mother Nature work with you, not against you. It's sort of like an easy way to get into the flow and then getting into the grace of life. And that's what some of my more in-depth programs are about, is helping people just live according to the Feng Shui principles, which is that natural rhythm of Mother Nature, and understanding that on a deep level, and then incorporating that into your spaces.
I like that you said that idea about leveraging your intention, because you are, every time that you're being deliberate and purposeful, whether that's changing out of Oz or doing something else in your life that's in connection. And I think that creates meaning. And as soon as you create meaning, that goes back to the passion and purpose and potential. It's like, look, this is life, and I'm participating fully in what I'm doing here. And that's where we get excited versus just like going through life and coming home and watching Netflix. So I love that. We only have a few minutes left, and I always like to give my people on my program the opportunity to tell my listeners where they can find your book, your website, and any little thing you'd like to leave my listeners with today.
When a flower doesn't bloom, we fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower. And that is so true with us. We simply have to look to our environment in order to know how we can bloom and become all that we are. And by learning more about this, you can find on my website a connection to stay connected with me for a newsletter that comes out once a month, twice a month. And that is at www.harmoniouslivingnow.com. And on that website also there is on the top bar, there is Emily's World, that you can find out more about this award-winning book of this beautiful little girl that learns and teaches us how we can follow what we love, the lights on process, to unlock our potential in our environments. She can also be found, Emily's book, Creating Spaces That Unlock Your Potential, through Amazon. Just plug in that name with my name, Katherine Allen, it will come up. Locally, at this time, you'll have to contact me in order to get a book personally, but I'm looking for places to put the book in, as well as opportunities to speak more and share this information with people.
Well, I want to just thank you so much for being on the program today. I just absolutely enjoyed this conversation, and you gave me a lot to think about texture and bringing in more of the senses, even in spaces that you can't do, paint and rearrange furniture or whatever the case may be. So I just want to thank you so much again for being on the program today.
Oh, you're welcome, and have fun with your blank slate of creating your space.
I will. Thank you. Again, if you want to find out more about my guest today, you can go to harmoniouslivingnow.com. Coming up next week, we have Jane Del Piero, and we're going to be talking about theta healing and the power of beliefs. And again, there's some big shakeups going on with my show. It's actually going to become a podcast. Entanglement Radio will still continue, and we'll still be talking about the potentials and possibilities of what it means to be human. But we're going to branch out beyond spirituality and talk about science, innovation, technology, politics, all of those wonderful things, and really a solutions-based program. So find out more about that at my website at hestiahealth.com. Find me on Facebook and on Twitter at Hestia Health and Entanglement Radio. And you can hear my show next week with Jane Del Piero here on the OMTimes Radio Network. This is Angela Levesque wishing you love and light. I'll see you next week.